Hello there and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Deepa Robbins from DeeZinesByD, and today I have two cards to share with you featuring some new products that I've actually never used before. So if any of you actually follow me on Instagram, it's at DeeZinesByD. I showed a video of an unboxing of one of my packages that I just received, and it was a bunch of products from Pigment Craft Company. Now, this is a relatively new company. I think it's been around for about a year, and I only just discovered their products, and I am literally in love with them. So today's cards are going to be featuring a lot of glistening and shine and glitter, and I'm going to show you how to add shine to your cards 4 different ways. So let's look at the products that I have here. I have 3 stamp sets called Fa La La, Christmas Bouquet, and Berry Merry stamps. The Christmas Bouquet actually comes as a bundle with a stencil set, but I won't be using that in this video. I will showcase that in another video. But for now, I'm just going to be stamping, and if I had enough money, I would have bought the dies as well, but I figured these are nice large images, so I'll just fussy cut these out. If you are not the type of person who likes to fussy cut, I would definitely recommend getting the dies for this to cut these out. It would make it much easier and much faster to do. So I started out with that Berry Merry stamp set, and I stamped out all of those hollies in the Blush, Glow, Himalayan, and Medina inks. And I think I showed this here. I normally use a Tombow Mono eraser to kind of condition my stamps before I use them. But I find with these inks, which use a foam pad, they don't need conditioning because the foam is just so nice and it makes the ink really stick to the stamp. And you don't really have to worry about that conditioning step at all. So I basically just took images from the different stamp sets. I used the wreath here, I used the holly leaf and the berries, and then I think I also used some of the foliage from the Christmas Bouquet stamp set, and I just stamped them all out in these nice pinky peachy colors because I wanted to keep my card having the soft look, but I wanted a variation of those peaches. So these inks help because they do come in a range of tones for a certain line of colors. It's kind of like the Altenew inks, and there's other stamp companies that use this type of process or this type of branding with their products, whereby it gives you different shades of one color, so it makes it easier for you to do stamping or dimensional stamping. Now, these foam pads work perfectly fine after you've used them a few times. I noticed that at first the ink isn't totally spread evenly on the ink pad, and I think that's mainly because of shipping, the way that they're positioned during shipping that kind of changes it. And there's a very helpful video up on the Pigment Craft Company YouTube channel, and it totally explains how to use these ink pads and how to deal with that uneven distribution of the ink at first. But once you get going, these inks stamp very nicely, and as they dry out, like most inks, the color evens out. I found that they were very easy to work with, and they're very juicy. So I really do recommend these foam ink pads over some of the other ones. However, I do love a mix of different ink pads, and it just really adds to your stash and gives you like a nice variation of products to use. So as you can see, I just used these beautiful colors to stamp out all of these images multiple times in some cases. Using my MISTI, this really helps. You see how I'm turning the paper? I don't have to move my stamp around. It just gets all the images stamped out a little quicker than it would if, say, you were using an acrylic block or if you had to keep moving your stamp around. So this is how everything turned out. And just to add that little bit of shine, this is one example, embossing powder. So I'm going to show you 2 ways to add the embossing powder. So it's really like 5 different ways. This way you're adding accents to your stamped images. Now I'll be using the Altenew Golden Peach embossing powder, and this is a really nice powder because it has that peach tone, just like the rest of these inks, and it shines like a golden color. So it creates like a nice little gold hue as you turn your card or your stamped image in one direction to the other against the light. So I added this bit of embossing powder only to the holly leaves because I am going to add a bunch more shine in some other ways. But I basically did this in sort of like an assembly line style, and that just helped me to do it a little quicker. So now I'll just heat up all of that embossing powder one by one. I kind of did them like 4 holly leaves at a time, and you can see that shine there that I was talking about. It shines that nice golden peach color, and it just looks really nice with these inks. Now I continued the same process with the berries on the wreaths. And in this case, the berries are a little smaller. You don't really need a stamp positioner for this, so I just use my acrylic block and my Versamark ink to kind of stamp these all out and then heat emboss them with the Altenew Golden Peach embossing powder. Now, you'll notice when I do heat these up, I tend to heat the back of the paper as well because you can see there's a bit of warping. But at the end of the day, we are going to be cutting these out and then adhering them to our another piece of cardstock, so that's not too much of an issue. I also did the centers of those little flowers there, and I'm showing you my little fussy cutting scissors because I fussy cut all of those out. And you don't need to watch all of that because that would just be boring. So let's move on. And I've got all of these little dies that I'm using from different Spellbinders and also a Simon Says stamp set. And I'm going to be using them with the Sizzix Opulent Ivory Glitter cardstock. I'll cut all of those little pieces out, and they're just going to help me add a bit more shine to my card. So that's the second way that you can use shine. Use glitter cardstocks. So let's move on to the backgrounds, and I am actually just going to be doing some ink blending with a ink blending brush, and I'm just adding some light color to the 4 edges of that card base. Now this card base is 5 by 7 inches. I create larger cards. You can always just use a smaller card base if you want. For these for these stamped images, they are a little larger. So that is also why I chose to use a larger card base, because it's going to be a bit harder to fit all of that on your card. And I did want to show a lot of those images. So you can see that jade and eucalyptus mix nicely to create a nice inked border there. And I'll be doing the same thing with the Pigment Craft Company blush ink, and then I'll be also using the Himalayan ink to just add a little bit more gradient to my color there. Now, once I've got all of that ink blending done, I'm going to show you a third way to add shine using embossing powder. So this is the Altenew Translucent Pearl Embossing Powder. I love this powder. As you can see, I'm like halfway out of it. It's really nice because it actually is a clear embossing powder, but it has like AB shining glitter inside of it. So it creates a nice glittery background, but because it uses a clear embossing powder as the base, it picks up the color of whatever you have behind it and gives it a glittery shine. So this is one of my favorite products. It really is great for adding that glitter to backgrounds, especially like this. And I am on this peach background, adding it to the entire background. I really didn't need to do that. I probably could have concentrated it in just the center since I will be adding all of those pieces along the edges, but it really is up to you. This just was easier for me. It took less thinking, let's put it that way. Now for the green background, I decided to concentrate more of that glitter in the center of the panel because I had planned earlier that I was going to have those pieces that I fussy cutted hanging from the top and bottom, so I really didn't need to add that glitter on the top and bottom of the panel. So now I'm stamping out the sentiments. I've lined them all up in my MISTI here, and I'm just going to stamp them all together. You can see for 2 of the sentiments, I'm using some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. And then for that big Fa La La sentiment, I'm going to be using VersaFine Watermark ink so that I can do some more heat embossing with that. So once I have them all stamped out, I'm using some more Altenew embossing powder. This is the Rose Gold embossing powder. I've mentioned this before. Their Rose Gold is actually just more like a softer gold. It's not as intense, and I don't really notice too much rose to it, but I do love the color and use it for a lot of projects where I do want to use a softer gold. So now let's go ahead and put this panel together. I basically alternated between using the foam squares and gluing some of the pieces like right down to the card base using some Barely Art glue. This is what helped me build layers and build that kind of dimension so that I have some items in my foreground and some in my background. And that's what really builds this dimensional border that makes your card just kind of pop a little bit. So all I did was sort of line all these little images along the border. And as I went, I sort of cut off the pieces from the edges because I do want a clean edge. And then those pieces that I cut off, they were fair game. I could use them to kind of stick back on the card in other areas. So that's a really good way to kind of get more out of your die cuts, or in my case, my fussy cuts, which took even longer to cut. So this means a lot to me. So my second last kind of way to add that shine is to add those glittery die cuts in there. So I had mentioned, okay, what was the first way? I used the glitter cardstock. So I'm using that glitter cardstock for all of those other little images. And you can see that it just helps, that white and the glitter helps the peach of the other stamped images kind of stand out and pop out. And because I'm also using that dimensional foam tape, it also helps these pieces kind of stand up off the background as well. The second way to add shine was to use embossing powder. That glitter embossing powder creates so much shine, and you can also use embossing powder as accents on your stamped images like I did with that golden peach. Now, the third method to add shine is actually very simple, and I'm pretty sure you guys can guess it. It's going to be coming up, and I'll tell you when it comes up. But basically, okay, I might as well just tell you now. So the third way is to add bling, okay? So we're just going to add a bunch of crystal AB lolly beads, these beautiful nail art gems that I have and I've been showing off in all of my videos. If you see the final product of my, the final showcase of my cards, you see these nail art gems just shining like crazy, and honestly, they are to die for. And they don't really cost that much. They cost the same amount as probably other embellishments, and they're easily found on Amazon. So go ahead and check out my blog. I've linked that in there. So as always, I'm showing you how I did the card insides. This was very simple. I just did some freehand stamping using my acrylic blocks, and I used some of that blush ink and some of the Himalayan ink to just create some two-toned holly leaves on the edges of my cards. So one card was a side folding card, so I just did the left edge of it, and then the other card was a top folding card, so I did the top edge and the bottom edge of it. So I'm just showing you one edge here. They were all done pretty much the same, and it literally took me like 10 seconds. It didn't take that long. Now for the sentiment, I'm using the Altenew Warm Blessings stamp set, and I'm using some mass stamping with this. So I showed you there that I masked off the printed sentiment. I inked up the handwritten sentiment, took off that washi tape that I had masked off, and then I stamped it down. And then I put my washi tape on the other half of the sentiment, the one that I just inked up, and then I used some VersaFine Claire Nocturne ink to ink up the printed part. Take off that washi tape, very important. Don't forget to take it off, or else you'll get splotching and a big mess on your card. And then I stamp that down, and that's how I get these two nice colors to kind of enhance my sentiment on the inside of my card. And then the final way to add shine, you guessed it, is some diamond stickles. So as with everything else on this card, it's shining AB. So that AB is that kind of prismatic color that you get when glitter shines like various colors of the spectrum. And this diamond stickles is no different. It just adds a bit of interest to all of these little elements on the card and adds that extra little bit of shine that you need to make this really stand out. So here you have the finished products. You can see, as I said, that shining of those gems, and you have the beautiful inside of the card. Not only do you have those gems, but you've got that background glistening with that glitter embossing powder. And then you've also got your diamond stickles shining in all of these little accented areas of your stamped and fussy cut images. So those are my two cards that I have to share with you today. I am so excited to have been able to purchase and use the Pigment Craft Company products. They are great, and I do recommend checking them out. For any of you people who are from Canada, Pigment Craft Company is in Canada, so you can skip all of those duties and taxes and get these worry-free, basically. So I hope that guys have enjoyed my video. Please give me a thumbs up and like my video if you get a chance. Subscribe. Maybe you want to check out my blog because there's a whole bunch more inspiration on there. And I have linked all of the products that I've used here as best that I can. I hope that you all have a great weekend. For those friends in the US that are celebrating Thanksgiving long weekend, I hope you have a great long weekend, and I hope that you guys tune in again and I get to show you some more cards next time. Take care and have a great day.